Hey team, Yasin here, and in this training we are going to be going over the ads creation foundations. Now, this is really going to not only educate you and get you ready and rocking and rolling to be able to create ads, because you will now know exactly what is the anatomy, what is it that makes up a Facebook ad, and so that way you actually know how to be able to do it properly. The other thing we're going to be doing in this training, so don't skip it, even if you're like, oh yeah, I know the foundation, it's really, really easy, da 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 da. Do not skip this, because we're actually going to be together putting together your audiences and how your targeting is going to be for your ads as well as making a copy of a very important document that you will need later on when we actually launch your ads. So let's go ahead and jump right into the training. So the very first thing that you should know is that there are a number of pieces of a Facebook ad. Okay, so we're going to really break down the anatomy of a Facebook ad. We're going to break it down step by step by step, so that way not only do you understand it, but you have a very, very expert level understanding of what Facebook ads are and how they work. Okay, so the very first thing that you need to know about an ad, right? So this is an example of an ad here, all of this, not just the red part, all of this is an example of an ad. Okay, now the very first part, the first anatomy aspect of an ad is what we call the copy. Okay, so the copy is specifically the text that is at the top of the ad, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a little bit as well, but I just want to kind of give you guys the overview on what it is that we're talking about here, okay? The next part is what we call the creative, and the creative is the image or video that goes underneath the text. Again, we're going to talk more about this here in a second, but again, this is just the overview. The next part is what they would call the call to action button. That is the button that is at the bottom of the ad right here, and that is specifically the call to action inside of the ad. But there might be specific call to action inside of the copy, so there's like multiple different types of CTAs that can actually happen, okay? The other thing is that you want to know is that there's something called a headline as well as a description. Those are pretty small things that happen over here. And then the other thing that's important to know is that behind the scenes, behind the ad, right? Because this is what prospects see, this is what the market sees, right? This is what typically people think of as the ad. Behind the ad, there are other pieces of the anatomy. There is something that we call the budget. There's the targeting of the audiences, which we're going to talk about more about in this training as well. And then there's specifically the placements. The placements are like, okay, inside of the news feed does it go? Does it go inside of the Facebook stories? Does it go inside of the Facebook videos? Does it go on Instagram, right? Because Facebook owns both Instagram and Facebook. And so does it go on the news feed of Instagram? Does it go in the stories? That is what we would call the placement. And that is another aspect of the anatomy of a Facebook ad as well, okay? Now, in this specific training, what we're going to be doing is that we will be focusing on the three most important aspects of an ad that are really what require deliberate work. They're the ones of the aspects that really require for you to think and specifically like strategize about, okay? And the rest of them, like the placements, right, the buttons, all of that kind of stuff, those are just like normal settings that we have that are proven to work. And then when we actually do launch ads, I'm going to talk to you guys all about that at that point. But what we're really going to focus on in this training is what we consider the three most important aspects of the anatomy of a Facebook ad, which is the audience, the copy, and the creative. And we're going to dive into each of those three right now, so that way not only do you have an understanding of it, but you'll also understand how you're going to be utilizing it in your specific Facebook ads launch, okay? So the very first thing is, let's go ahead and talk about the Facebook ads targeting, which is what we call the audience, okay? And so I'm going to give you guys a practical example of this, because what we're going to do is we're going to dive into the ads manager. And typically Facebook, every couple years they do end up changing how it ends up looking, but typically it's always pretty much stayed the same regarding the ads manager. And obviously, don't worry if this looks overwhelming. We will be breaking it down in future trainings as well. But I want you to really just focus with me on one specific thing on the screen right now, which is this section right here. You see there's like a white section right here that says audience. Now, this is going to be where basically what we do is we target exactly who it is that we want to put this ad in front of, okay? So you can see here, create a new audience. And then the very first part of this is you can basically target what are the countries that you want to put this ad into. And so you can see here that if we were going to go ahead, and I'm going to open up these age ranges over here just so that way you can see what I'm talking about here, okay? So let's say if I was to do 18 to 65 plus, and I'm going to go ahead and do all genders. So you can see here that if I was going to target only the United States between 18 and 65 plus and all genders, I would basically, my potential reach would be 190 million people, okay? Now, in addition to that, I can go ahead and add, United Kingdom if I wanted to add to that. I can go ahead and add Canada if I really wanted to add to that as well, right? You can target pretty much any country on the planet. There's a couple exceptions like China and stuff, but just joking about that. But the point being is that you can target pretty much any country in the world regardless of where you are at. So you can be, in Dallas, you can be in Los Angeles, it doesn't matter. And you can literally be running ads in Argentina, you can run ads in South Africa, whatever it might be. And so you can see here, if we pulled all of those audiences together, we would be at 240 million people that we would be able to target with this Facebook ad, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and take out these other countries just so we can look at the United States for now. Then the second part of the audiences is that you can target the age range. So you can say, okay, you know what? My product is really mainly for the younger demographic, right? Let's say I'm selling something that's a little bit more targeted. I only want to target between 18 and 32. But let's say, for example, I'm selling something that's high ticket, right? You probably don't want to be selling something that's high ticket to people who are 18, 19, 20, 21 years old because they're probably broke. And so you might be like, okay, you know what? I really want to target people who are above the age of 29 and that kind of stuff. Let's say, for example, that you are selling health and wellness coaching and that's specifically for women, for example, right? You might say, okay, I want to only target women. Now, here is the really cool thing about this, okay? Now, stick with me because this is going to absolutely blow your mind if you've never seen this before. Even if you have seen this before, I'm going to show you guys some really cool tricks with this, okay? So underneath detailed targeting, I go ahead and click on edit. And again, don't worry about this for now. I'm going to talk to you more about this, but just get the gist of this with me. Is if I go over to suggestions, actually, I'll go to browse, What I can do is I can literally put my ad in front of people who match various different types of demographics. So I can put my ad in front of people who only have achieved an associate's degree, people who have a college graduate degree, people who have a high school graduate degree in college. And you can see here that it'll go ahead and tell me the size of that specific audience. I can put myself in front of only people who have professional degrees, only master's degrees, right? That's just the education level. I can put it in terms of fields of studies. I can go ahead and target specific people who went to specific schools. I'm literally telling you, Facebook has more information than you think it does. I'm telling you, Facebook knows you better than you think you know yourself. It's really, really legit, okay? That's just the education. If I go to financial, right, I can go ahead and target specifically household incomes in the top 10, 15, 25% of the entire country or this entire country that I'm specifically targeting here. I can go ahead and check this out. This is insane. I can go ahead and target people based on their anniversary, if it's in the next 30 days or not. People who are living away from their family, people who, based on their hometown. I can target people based on their birthday, people if they are friends of, people who are friends of men with a birthday in the next 7 days. Imagine that. Imagine that I can target people who have friends of men with the birthday in the next 7 days. So this is really the power of targeting and the power of Facebook, right? So parents, I can go ahead and target people who are all parents with preschoolers, preteens, teenagers, toddlers. I can go ahead and target people who are in a relationship, people who are divorced, people who are in a civil union, engaged, open relationship, separate, single. I can target people from there. I can target people who have work, who don't have work. I can target certain employers. I can go ahead and target interests, right? I can go ahead and target people who really like, baking, for example. And so it's literally an infinite amount of variations in terms of how you can target, right? Based on behaviors. Look at this. People who are more mobile users. I can go ahead and target people who have a certain, conservative, moderate, whatever that might be, people who like soccer, people who don't like soccer, people who like traveling, people who don't like traveling. And so this detailed targeting section of the audiences on Facebook, I'm showing you this just to show you the power of Facebook ads. The power of literally Facebook has over 1 billion active users on a monthly basis, right? Like everybody is pretty much on Facebook in some capacity, right? Some people are like, oh yeah, but Facebook is for younger people nowadays. The truth is, trust me, your target market is on Facebook in some way, shape, or form. Don't let yourself be convinced otherwise, okay? And so that is the power of the audiences section of Facebook ads. Now, the biggest thing I want to emphasize here is we're going to go ahead and create your audiences here together, and do not go crazy on this because there's some other rules that are important to know about detailed targeting. It's not like you want to target like moms who are the age of 31 and 32 who live in Los Angeles area who also like dogs. That may not be the best option for you, and we're going to talk more about that here in a little bit, but this is really just the overview that I wanted to show you, that it shows you the potential reach. You can target literally to the kind of person that you want to target. It is very, 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 very specific, okay? And so over here, like we talked about here, what is it? This is the targeting of who your ads show up in front of. There are two major types of targeting that you can do. There's interest-based targeting and location-based targeting, aka radius-based targeting, okay? So let's say, for example, I was a local business. Let's say I'm a local gym owner. Let's say that I am somebody who runs a bakery. It doesn't really make sense for me to be targeting people who live in, let's say I'm in Orlando, Florida, and I'm going to target people who who are in Los Angeles. That doesn't make sense because I'm a local business owner, right? And so in that capacity, what I would then do is I would go ahead and add in an address into this field right here. And then I would go ahead and put a radius around that, right? So let's say, for example, I was going to put, let's say I put, I'm just go ahead and put a random address in here. I guess we'd go to Sweden. Let's go to Sweden here. So if I go to Sweden, once I actually put in the address there, it gives me the option to go ahead and, well, I have to put in a legitimate address. But regardless, once you put in an address in here, you can put in any address in as you can see, in pretty much the whole entire country or the entire world. And then you can put a radius around, okay, I only want to reach people who are in a 10-mile radius of this specific address. That is the first type. The second type is, let's say you are doing an online business, which is what we recommend. The reason being is because you can market to more people, you can get more customers. Overall, it just makes more sense. If you're doing it that way, that is when you would actually go ahead and use, more of the ages, genders, and interest-based targeting. But if you're really only targeting people in a 10-mile radius of your location, then it doesn't really make sense to use interest-based targeting because you're only going to have a very small population size around that radius. And so at that point, you really wouldn't use a lot of these advanced features. You would only utilize the radius aspect of things, okay? The other thing I want to mention here regarding targeting and audiences is that how the algorithm works is that you want to have a large number. You want to have at least, 50,000, 100,000. Actually, correct me. I'm going to say this one more time. You actually want more than typically 500,000, a million people if you're doing interest-based targeting. The reason being is because the algorithm is going to take your large population set and actually focus in further into that. And so you want to have a large, massive population size to be able to pull from. This is different if you're doing local-based targeting, right? If you're only doing radius-based targeting, you don't really have any option, and so you have to just stick to whatever number that you have in your, if you're living in Wisconsin, your population density is going to be different than if you're living in Dallas. And so that's kind of what you're limited to by your geography, okay? The next thing that I want to go ahead and put here is that once you find a proven audience, meaning that it actually works, right? If you're marketing larger than your radius, it will last you for a long time depending on the size, okay? Again, the reason I mentioned the radius is because those who are gym owners, those who are, people running brick and mortar businesses, you will basically be limited. You can't have a proven audience because you're literally limited by the geographic location of your area, okay? And so regardless of what paid traffic play you're going to be following, you will need to find your audience. And so that's what we're going to go ahead and do here together in this training, okay? So let's go ahead and go step by step by step, and let's talk about the two-step process to actually find your audience. So the first step, which is step 0, is decide if you're going to be doing radius-based targeting, aka location-based targeting, or interest-based targeting. So radius-based targeting, like I just talked about, is if you are a brick and mortar business, you will be doing radius-based targeting. You're going to put in the address of your location. You're going to go ahead and put the address of your location right in here. And you are typically going to do about a 7 to 10 mile radius around your specific location, and that's it. You will not really mess around too much with the age, with the gender, or the detailed targeting, because you can't. Especially if you're not in a populated area, you literally don't have the ability to pull from a large sample set. You can mess around maybe with the ages a little bit, maybe with the gender a little bit, but honestly, you need as many people inside of your ad set as possible if you are doing location-based targeting, which again is specifically for those who are brick and mortar businesses. However, if you're running an online-based business, which is what we highly recommend because you will make more money that way, that is how you're going to be doing interest-based targeting. And so if you're doing interest-based targeting, then you need to follow the next 2 steps, which should be the most of you, okay? Step number 1 is going to be finding your pillar audience. And then step number 2 is going to be finding your 10 affinity audiences. And we're going to be doing both of those together step by step right here in this training right now, okay? So let's go ahead and talk about the very first step here, which is finding your pillar audience. So the very first step to finding your pillar audience is that you want to go ahead and take a second and you want to brainstorm some audience interest ideas based on your understanding of the market. So you want to take some time and kind of take a piece of paper. Okay, I'm telling you do this. Okay, don't try to do this in your head. Literally take a piece of paper and you want to write down, okay, what are some of the popular books, right? If you're not sure, go on Amazon. What are some of the popular influencers of this market? What are some of the popular news sources? What are some of the popular Facebook pages? Some of the popular websites, right? Some of those talk show hosts, those kinds of things. You want to find at least 10 to 20 of popular things in that specific market. And then after you have found about 10 to 20s on your list, right? You just want to write down 10 to 20 names or 10 to 20 businesses or 10 to 20 influencers, whatever that might be. Step number 2 is you're then going to, out of those 10 to 20, you're going to pick one that your life depends on. So which one specific audience out of that 10 to 20 list that you've gone ahead and made, that would you pick if your life depended on reaching your market using Facebook ads? So out of that list, you're going to say, okay, which one is more likely to have my target market if I was to reach myself in front of these people on Facebook? That is going to now become what we consider your pillar audience, okay? What you're going to go ahead and do next is you're going to go over to step number 3, and you're going to go ahead and make a copy of the ads tracking sheet and add it to your Google Drive. So right underneath this training is a link to something that we call the ads tracker. And just like everything else in this program, you're going to follow the download steps. You're going to go ahead and click on that link. You are not going to be able to edit that version. You're going to go ahead and click on File, Make a Copy, and you are going to specifically put that inside of your lead gen folder and then put it inside of your paid traffic folder. If you do not have a paid traffic folder, you will go ahead and make a paid traffic folder and then put this Google Sheets document inside of that, okay? And so that is going to be step number 3, which is make a copy of the ads tracking sheet to your Google Drive over here. Then step number 4, what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to go ahead and verify our pillar audience by creating a draft ad set to see if we can actually target it. So remember, you have your list, you made your 10 to 20 names, you picked one, right? You circled one based on that, and then you went in and made the copy of the Google Sheet because we're going to utilize that here in a second. And now what you're going to do is you're going to take that name and you're going to go over to the Ads Manager, which you should have already made. You're going to go over to Create. You're just going to go ahead and put, whatever conversions. You're going to go ahead and name it. No, continue. You're then going to go over here. You're going to go and click on New Ad Set. And then you're going to scroll down. All of this other stuff doesn't matter because we're going to delete this ad set shortly. You're going to scroll down and you're going to go over here to Detailed Targeting. You're going to click on Edit. And then right here in the side of the search bar, you are going to take that pillar audience name that you circled on your list and you're going to type it in here. Okay, so let's say, for example, my pillar audience, based on what my research was, is I'm going to type in Weight Watchers. And what you want to look at, sometimes it's a little bit finicky, so sometimes you have to kind of, there we go. So sometimes you have to kind of go back and forth. Like if I typed in Weight Watchers, it says no results found, but I actually showed it this time. But the first time around, it didn't actually show up, right? So sometimes you have to kind of go back and forth because it is a little bit finicky like that. But what you want to do is you want to see, okay, can I actually target Weight Watchers on Facebook? Because there's a lot of people who, they have to reach a certain audience size in order to be able to target them on Facebook. And so in this case, you can see I can target Weight Watchers, and that's under interests. I can also target Weight Watchers as employers, but you don't want to be looking at the employer side. You want to see, can I target Weight Watchers as an interest? And so right here, I can actually target Weight Watchers as an interest. Some other ones, right, that you might be actually thinking about is like, hey, you know what? I want to target, for example, like Online Fit Pro Secrets, like our organization, right? You actually cannot target us. Like if you type in Online Fit Pro Secrets, you will not be able to target us because we are not as big as Weight Watchers, bottom line. And so, right, if you put in certain like influencers, right? Like let's say you're in the internet marketing space and you're like, oh, okay, I can target Russell Brunson. So you want to just make sure that that pillar audience that you have listed down, you want to make sure that you can actually target them inside of Facebook by going ahead and creating that test ad set, okay? So verify your pillar audience by creating a draft ad set to see if you can target it. And then you want to make sure, is the audience size above 20,000 people, ideally 50,000 people? And so you will see the audience size there when you actually type in their name, right? So in the case of Weight Watchers, actually, let me go back here. There we go. Here's a test. Weight Watchers. Weight Watchers is 12 million, so awesome, we're solid, right? You just want to make sure that it's a big enough population size for you to be able to put ads in front of without actually burning them out. That's the biggest thing that you want to find out there, okay? Once you've actually verified it, which is step number 4, you're then going to go to step number 5 and you're going to add your pillar audience to the ads tracking sheet and you're going to put its audience size and you're going to highlight it, okay? So what you're going to go ahead and do is you're then going to go over to your ads tracking sheet. Under the ideas section, you're going to go ahead and put in not Tony Robbins, but you're going to put in your pillar audience. And then you're going to go ahead and put in the audience size that you saw on here. So actually, since you were using Weight Watchers, I'm going to stick to Weight Watchers. So I'm going to put 12.4 million people, okay? So we're going to go here. Let's go Weight Watchers. I'm going to put 12.4 million people. And then I'm going to go ahead and highlight it, yellow. Boom. Just like that, I have my pillar audience done. And just like that, I have now completed step number 1 of finding my interest-based targeting audience that I'm going to be targeting, okay? The next thing right after that, if you have all the tabs open, you want to do it right after because it can be easier, is you want to now find your 10 affinity audiences. So what you're going to go ahead and do now is you are actually going to go ahead, and I would recommend you actually open another tab for this, okay? So you're going to go over here, you're going to open another tab because we're going to leave this here so we can utilize it. We're going to go over here to click OK. We're going to close this. We're going to click on these dots. We're going to scroll down and we're going to find audience insights. Boom, just like that. Now we're going to click on everyone on Facebook And then what we're going to do is we're going to enter in your pillar audience into the interest section, and you're going to enter in your pillar audience into the interest section. So you're going to come here, you can type in Weight Watchers, boom, just like that. And then what you're going to see here is that this audience insights, this is the country, this is the age group, this is whatever, the gender. You're going to be able to see here, okay, out of this audience interest, what percentage are women? What percentage are men? Obviously, specifically for Weight Watchers, 11% of people who like Weight Watchers are men and 89% are women, which makes sense. What is the relationship status of people who like Weight Watchers? What is the education level of people who like Weight Watchers? What is their typical job titles? You can see here as well, right? There's apparently a lot of administrative services people who like Weight Watchers. Who knew? Now, the biggest thing that we want to do, though, is we want to go over here to page likes. But the reason I'm mentioning this is because all this other information can be used to educate yourself on your market. You're going to go over here to page likes. You're going to scroll down. Again, over here under this top categories, these are kind of the top categories of people who like Weight Watchers. What are some of the other things that they like? But what we are interested in is the bottom section here that says page likes. We scroll down here, and these are all of the different pages that people who like Weight Watchers actually like as well. The reason why this is an absolute gold mine is because what we're going to be doing is we're basically going to be pillaging, and we're going to basically be hacking into Weight Watchers' audience to find out what are the other audiences that we can run ads in front of, okay? So here, click on page likes, scroll down to see what other pages are close affinity with your pillar audience, and we're going to go ahead and type in the relevant audiences into our ads tracking sheet. So right here, you can see here that it says 77 recipes. Relevant score means that it's the most relevant to the Weight Watchers audience. The audience of this specific recipe one here is 323,000. On all of Facebook, that is 483,000. So that means that out of the people who like Weight Watchers, 323,000 people like 77 recipes. And then out of all of Facebook, 483,000 people like that. And then this is like the affinity score. How likely is your audience given to like that specific page, okay? What you're going to do is you're actually going to go ahead and take these and you're going to put them in here, 77 recipes. Now, I want to emphasize here, you want to put the relevant ones, okay? So let's say, for example, I find one and I'm like, you know what? Let's say Amazon was in here. It's not in here right now, but I've seen it happen where, like, let's say people who really like Joanne Fabric Store, which might be worth testing, but it might be too, like, too generic. Or like people who really like Amazon. Like I've seen Amazon on here, people who like Google, people who like Apple, like those would not necessarily be relevant because you can see yourself how that would be such a massive audience that it doesn't really make sense to put your ad in front of because they don't really have an affinity. They don't really have a connection to Weight Watchers. Even though it might show up on the affinity list, it may not be something that you want to target. Maybe down the road, if you're like, you know what, I really want to give it a shot. I want to target Amazon, to see if they have an affinity with Weight Watchers because that's my clientele. Maybe, but typically you wouldn't want to do that. So what you want to do is you want to go down this list and you want to see what are the relevant ones and you want to be typing them into here. So the next one is, points recipe. So I'll just go ahead and copy this in here, points recipes. I'm going to go in here and type in get tasty recipes. I'm going to go in here. I'm going to get, formerly Weight Watchers. Apparently that is a separate page. That is formerly Weight Watchers. So I'll go ahead and put that in here. Just like that. Why is it not copying? Sometimes if it doesn't copy, then you probably just have to type it. www formerly Weight Watchers. I type stuff in the URL bar so I can see it, and then I can paste it here. There we go. Hungry Girl. Okay, so basically you want to repeat this process, and you want to make sure that you have 10 altogether. Okay, so right here I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You want to make sure you have 7, 8, 9, and 10. That's going to be very critical. These are what we call your affinity audiences, and you should have now altogether at least 10 audiences. Actually, that's 10 audiences including your pillar audience, so you want 11 total. You want to make sure you have at least 11 totals inside of the ideas section of the audiences tracker inside of the ads tracking Google Sheet, okay? That's going to be very important. That is step number 4. Step number 5, find more. Once you've exhausted your pillar audience, grab another audience from your list that you think is the second best, and then find affinity of those. Keep repeating this until you have 10 audiences in your ads tracking sheet. Again, that's 10 audiences in addition to your pillar audience, so 11 audiences total. In our case, we were able to find as many as we needed, and so therefore we wouldn't have to go into any of those. However, if we didn't have enough and we're like, you know what, these are like Amazon and Google and Apple, like these are not good enough, so then I would just grab one of these, like 77 recipes. I would scroll up here. I would go ahead and X Weight Watchers out. I would go ahead and put 77 recipes. Sometimes it doesn't come up properly. You see, in that case, it doesn't even show up. So in that case, I would have to go and grab a different one. Here, I would go over to, let's say, tasty recipes. You see, that one doesn't show up either. So in that case, you just have to find out. So these are ones that I can't really even use. So that's why it needs a little bit of time to kind of go back and forth to find ones that you can actually go ahead and target, okay? Then the best thing about this is that we're actually going to verify these. So that's why we went ahead and left that tab open. So when you go back over to our ad set that we had open, right? So we have our audience insights, we have our ad set here, and then we have our tracker here. We're going to now go in here and see, okay, I had tasty recipes. Can I even target tasty recipes? I know it was on the affinity. I know it's a page, but I can't even target it. You see? So I'm not going to put that on my list. So I'm going to go back over here. I'm going to go back to Weight Watchers. I'm going to go back to my page likes. I'm going to go here. I'm going to type in Hungry Girl. Can I target Hungry Girl? Let's find out. Hungry Girl. There we go. Hungry Girl. Interest. So that is 1.1 million, 1.12 million. Okay? So I'm going to go here. Hungry Girl. 1.12 million. Or just 1.1 million. Doesn't make a big difference. Next one, I'm going to go here. Let's try easy family recipes. Go here, easy family recipes. Nope, can't target easy family recipes. So next, I'm going to go over to tasteful. Let's see if I can target tasteful. Nope, doesn't look like I can target tasteful. See? And so that is exactly why, even though there's a lot of lists on here, you may not even be able to target all of these. And so that's why you want to kind of go back and forth and then try to figure out, okay, how can I get a total of 11 audiences here? Now, in addition to, as you're doing these audiences here, you want to also make sure that you're writing down the size of them here as well. Okay, that's going to be very important. So here, verify each of the pillar audiences by creating a draft ad set and then put their audience size in the ads tracking sheet. Boom, just like that, you will now have 11 audiences, 1 pillar, and 10 affinity audiences. So that way you are ready to rock and roll for later on in the training when we actually go ahead and launch your ads. Cool? Make sure you pause the video and make sure you do that right now so that way that is taken care of before we go into the next part, because we have now completed talking about audiences and targeting in terms of Facebook. Next thing we're going to dive into is we're going to go ahead and talk about copy. So copy, like we talked about, is the top part of the ad, which is the text that actually goes inside of the ad. Now, copy, it was funny because when I first started business, I thought that copy meant copywriting in terms of, copyright like patenting and stuff. But copy is short for copywriting, but it doesn't mean copywriting like patents. It means copy like as in the writing that is on the ad. The one thing I want to also mention is that in the ads manager, copy is known as primary text. And so you're not going to see the word copy in the ads manager when you're making ads. It's going to be called primary text. Like if I go here, new ad, I scroll down, creative is going to be the same, but it'll say primary text. That's what we call copy in Facebook ads term. There's primarily 2 types of copy. There's something that's called long form and short form copy. So in this case, this would be typically called like maybe a medium form, like it's not that long. Short form would be like, hey, are you struggling with da-da-da? Are you this? Whatever, right? And actually that's not a good, that might be against Facebook ads policy, but it might just be like 1 or 2 sentences. That's what we call short form copy. Long form is when you have like a massive story, right? And it's typically long form and short form, they're used for different purposes. Typically long form will have a higher quality of a lead. Short form will have a lower quality lead, but more volume, right? So there's pros and cons to both of those. Typically, your copy will last longer than your creative will. Typically, that you don't have to refresh your copy as often as you will have to refresh your images and your videos and that kind of stuff. And then the last thing I want to mention is that you want to make sure that you look at the specific paid traffic play that you will be running to see the specific copy that's going to be utilized for that. So in this training, I'm not going to be giving you guys specific copy because that specific copy is going to be utilized when you guys look at the ads playbook and you know, okay, I'm going to be running this specific play, then all of the copy is going to be found in there, okay? Next, we're going to go ahead and talk about creative. Creative is the images and the videos that happen on the actual ad. These normally have to be refreshed a lot more regularly because people actually end up in your market getting blindness, and that really, and also changes the market, kind of impact the ability for your ad to be relevant in the marketplace, okay? And again, similar to copy, you want to make sure that you look at the specific paid traffic play that you will be running in order to look at the kinds of the creative that we will be giving you guys to run for that, okay? The last thing before we close out this training, the last thing I want to talk to you guys about is the Facebook ads library. Now, the reason why the Facebook ads library is super awesome and super cool is because of the fact that it allows you to really see other people's ads. Yes, I said that. It allows you to see other people's ads and what it is that they are running. So how do you do this? What you're going to be doing is that there are 6 steps in order to look at somebody else's Facebook ads. So what you're going to go ahead and do is you're going to go over to any Facebook page, and you go to any Facebook page, you scroll down, and you go down to the section that says page transparency. Right here, you click on see all, and then you scroll down and it'll say go to ads library. Now, if somebody's not running paid traffic at this time, it's not going to tell you go to ads library. It'll say they're not running paid traffic at this time. In this case, Tony Robbins is running paid traffic at this time. And so I would go ahead and click on go to ads library, and that is going to go ahead and take me over to his ads library. And it will show me all of the ads that he is currently running. It'll show me the copy. If I click on it, it'll show me the long form copy. You see this is long form. And it'll also show me the creative that he is currently running as well. And so I can literally see all of the ads that he is running, which is very powerful. So that way you can get an idea of how are the competitors in the space marketing, and how is it that what might be working, what might not be working. Like if I scroll down here and I look, there is an ad that he has been running since September 29th. There might be a good chance that this ad is running very well, or it might even be a retargeting ad, so it might not be. But the point being is that you can kind of get a gist of how things are running on his Facebook Ads Manager. That's how it is. And so that is one way that you can go to the ads library. The other way is that the ads library does have like a website. It's like facebook.com/ads library. I typically never use it like that. You can like go in here and type in like somebody's name. I've never utilized it like that. I've always just go to Facebook, search the person's page name, go to page transparency, and then take it from there, okay? And so that is going to allow you to get an idea of what are some of the other ads that are running. One thing I want to mention is that this will not show you the other parts of the ad. It's not going to show you the targeting. It's not going to show you the placements that they're using. It'll only show you the copy and the creative. That's the major thing it'll show me, and obviously the other stuff as well, like the call to action button, right? It'll show me the call to action button, and it'll show me the headline, but none of the behind the scenes stuff. It's not going to show you any of that, okay? The last thing I want to mention about this is that be ethical. Do not be a sleazy scumbag, okay? This is not for something for you to just literally steal and then go ahead and utilize it. This is literally just to get your creative juices flowing. Don't be that person who goes in and steals other people's copy. There's other people's creative and all that kind of stuff, unless you're in some kind of, if somebody's a brick and mortar business and they're in like Los Angeles and you're a brick and mortar business in Texas, the chances of you guys competing for the same ad space is not necessarily the same. So in that case, there's a little bit more of an open area there. However, if you are literally targeting the same exact people and you go and grab somebody else's thing, first off, you're going to look like you're a thief and nobody wants to do business with the thief. The second thing is that you're not going to have a good reputation in the marketplace, because that person will see your ads and you're just going to be totally blacklisted, okay? So don't be dumb, be smart about this, and don't be a sleazy scumbag. And so that is the Ads Creation Foundations training. I know it was a little bit of a long one. Make sure you actually pause and follow all the instructions. Make sure you get a proper understanding of the foundations of Facebook ads and their anatomy. So that way, when we actually go ahead and launch Facebook ads here very soon, you will absolutely be able to crush it and know exactly what it is that you are doing. I will catch you guys on the next training.